If you're picturing a Viking wedding as some romantic feast of mead and song, you might want to think again. Forget the sweeping romances you've seen on TV. The reality was far more practical, far more brutal, and full of rituals that would probably horrify us today. Picture it, you're a bride in a smoky longhouse. A crowd of drunken warriors isn't just celebrating your union, they're waiting for it to be legally proven. Your wedding night isn't your own. It's a public event, a legal requirement, and a ritual that feels completely alien to our modern world. Because the Viking wedding didn't just end with a party, it ended with a bizarre ceremony designed to make the whole thing official. So let's uncover the traditions, the transactions, and the surprising truth of what really happened on a Viking wedding night. Before we even get to the wedding night, we have to get one thing straight. For most Vikings, especially the wealthy ones, marriage wasn't about love. It was a business deal. Think of it as a strategic alliance between two families to consolidate wealth, secure land, and forge powerful connections. Love might have been a luxury for the poor, but for anyone with status, a wedding was a contract. This contract had three key financial parts. First was the munder asterisk, or bride price. Now, this wasn't as simple as buying a wife. The munder was a payment of wealth, silver, land, or cattle, from the groom's family to the bride's father. It did two things. It compensated her family for losing her labor and proved the groom was a worthy provider. These prices could get so expensive that many young men had to go on Viking raids just to afford to get married. Next came the dowry, often called the hymenfylgja. This was the wealth the bride brought with her into the marriage, like land, livestock, or heirlooms from her family. And critically, this property often remained legally hers. While the protections varied across regions, Viking laws did offer women some rights over their dowry, which meant her husband couldn't just waste it. Finally, there was the the morning gift. This was a personal gift from the groom to his new wife on the morning after the wedding was consummated. It was hers alone, a token of the consummation and a symbol of her new status. So where did the bride's feelings fit into all this? While the law didn't strictly require a woman's consent, forcing her into a marriage she hated was seen as bad form. The sagas suggest it was common for fathers to consult their daughters, probably because an unhappy union could damage the family's honor. A woman in a forced marriage could even seek a divorce, a right available to both men and women. So while it was a long way from a modern love match, she wasn't entirely powerless. Once the terms were agreed upon, the families would shake on it, and a date was set. A Viking wedding wasn't a one-day event. It was often a week-long festival, and preparations started long before the first guest showed up. Even choosing the date was a ritual. Weddings were often held on a Friday, Frigg's Day, named for the goddess of marriage, as this was thought to be the most favorable time. But that wasn't a hard rule, and practicality usually won. Winter weddings were almost impossible because of the snow, and families had to make sure they had enough food and ale for guests who might travel for days. In the days before the ceremony, the bride and groom were separated for their own symbolic rituals. The bride would be taken to a bathhouse by her mother and other married female relatives. There, she was ritually cleansed, washing away her life as a maiden. She was stripped of her old clothes and any symbols of her unmarried status. Some sources mention a kransen, a circlet worn by unmarried girls, being removed and saved for a future daughter, though this might be a later medieval custom confused with the Viking Age. This wasn't just about getting clean. It was a symbolic death of her old self before she was reborn as a wife. Now, you might have heard a wild story about the groom's preparation, that he had to break into an ancestor's tomb to retrieve a family sword. As dramatic as that sounds, historians are pretty sure this is a modern myth. The sagas do mention breaking into burial mounds, but for other ritual reasons, not as a standard wedding prep. What was incredibly important was the ancestral sword itself. It represented the family's honor, legacy, and power. The groom would be given his family's sword, marking his transition to a man responsible for protecting a new household. It wasn't just a weapon, it was his entire lineage in physical form. Afterward, he would also go to a bathhouse with his male relatives to be cleansed and advised on his new duties as a husband. Both were being prepared for a profound shift in their identity. With the preparations done, the ceremony could finally start. And it was anything but quiet. At its core were rituals designed to bind the couple together and get the blessing of the gods. Central to this was the blot a ritual sacrifice. An animal, chosen for a specific god, would be sacrificed to win their favor. A goat for Thor might bring protection and strength, while a boar for Freya or Freyja was a plea for fertility. This was a public event, not a grim, hidden affair. The animal's blood was collected in a bowl, and a bundle of fir twigs was dipped in it to sprinkle over the couple and the guests. This was a powerful symbol, transferring the divine blessing and life force from the gods directly to the new couple. The meat was then cooked and served at the feast, binding the community and the gods in a shared meal. And to be clear, while animal sacrifice was standard, the idea of human sacrifice at a Viking wedding is pure myth. Next came the oaths and gifts, the legal heart of the ceremony. The couple exchanged rings, often presented on the hilts of their swords. The exchange of swords was even more important than the rings. The groom would give his ancestral sword to his bride, making her the guardian of his family's lineage, to be passed on to their sons. In return, her family would gift a sword to the groom, symbolizing the transfer of her father's duty of protection to her new husband. Fertility was a huge concern, and one ritual was especially direct: the use of Thor's hammer. A symbol of Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, would be placed in the bride's lap. On one level, this was a call for Thor's protection, but it also had a much bawdier meaning. The hammer was an unmistakable phallic symbol, and placing it in her lap was a very public prayer for fertility and lots of children. Finally, many ceremonies included hand-fasting asterisk. The couple's hands were bound together with a cord, symbolizing their lives being tied together. This is where many believe the phrase "tying the knot" comes from, though the direct link is debated. For the Vikings, it was a powerful, symbolic act. Once the gods were appeased and the oaths were sworn, the party could really start. But even the celebration had its own strange, competitive traditions. One of the most unusual was the brudlop, which literally means bride running. It wasn't practiced everywhere, but it added a dose of chaos to the day. After the ceremony, the two families would race on foot to the feast hall. The losing family had a penalty. They had to serve drinks to the winners all night. It was a very Viking way to break the ice and build bonds through ritualized competition. Before the feast began, the groom had one more symbolic task: carrying his bride over the threshold of their new home. Thresholds were seen as spiritually dangerous places, and by carrying her, he protected her. Some stories say he would then thrust the sword his wife's family gave him into a wooden beam of the house. The deeper the cut, the longer the marriage was predicted to last. Then the feast would begin. This was a loud, rowdy affair that could go on for days. Mead, a strong honey ale, flowed from drinking horns. The main course was the meat from the animal sacrificed earlier. Toasts were made to the gods, Odin for wisdom, and especially Freyja, the goddess of love and fertility, to bless the newlyweds. But the deal wasn't sealed just yet. The union was only considered legally binding after the bride and groom drank a ceremonial ale together from a shared cup in front of all the guests. This act sealed the marriage. But even with the feast in full swing, the most critical ritual was still to come. As the party wound down, the entire community's attention shifted to the final, and to us, most shocking part of the wedding: the bedding ceremony. This was the ritual that legally validated the marriage, and it's where the romantic image of a Viking wedding completely falls apart. Forget any idea of a private, romantic wedding night. Viking law was built on evidence and witnesses, and consummation was too important to be done in secret. To make sure the marriage was legally binding and couldn't be disputed, a group of witnesses, at least 6, usually close family, had to take part in the bedding ritual. This wasn't just a few people wishing the couple well. The witnesses would light torches and lead a formal procession, escorting the bride and groom from the feast hall to the bridal bed. Everyone present knew exactly what was about to happen. So, what happened next? This is where modern sensationalism gets it horribly wrong. Some stories claim the witnesses would stay and watch the couple consummate the marriage in a grotesque public performance. But the historical evidence just doesn't support that. Here's what really happened. The public part was witnessing the couple get into bed together. The witnesses would follow them into the chamber, confirm it was the correct bride and groom, and watch as they lay down together under one blanket. Once that was seen, the witnesses left, and the door was closed. They did not stay to watch the act itself. So why the bizarre ritual? It wasn't for entertainment. It was all about cold, hard Viking law. It was a safeguard against deception. The groom couldn't later claim he was tricked into marrying the wrong person, nor could the bride's family swap in a different woman. It was public verification that the conditions for consummation were met, ensuring any future children were legitimate heirs. It was an act of legal proof, not perversion. The morning after brought the final act. The groom would present his wife with the morgengifu, or morning gift. This gift, maybe jewelry or valuable household goods, was hers alone. It confirmed the marriage had been consummated and was now legally complete. The bride was now a wife, with a new status and a measure of her own wealth. From calculated bride prices to blood-soaked blessings and the witnessed bedding, a Viking wedding was a world away from our ideas of romance. It was about family, honor, property, and law. These traditions reveal a society that was complex, pragmatic, and bound by rules we can barely imagine today. And while the sword exchanges and mead toasts sound pretty cool, the bedding ceremony is one tradition we're all probably happy to leave in the past. So what do you think? Is this ancient legal requirement more shocking than the myths of a public spectacle? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to uncover more surprising truths from history, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next video.